The International Atomic Energy Agency is set to release its latest report on Iran's nuclear activities this week, and it's expected to be the most incriminating and dramatic report yet. Western diplomats and nuclear experts who've been briefed on the findings say it shows clear evidence that Iran's nuclear program is military in nature. And perhaps most worrying, the report finds that Iran already has the material, technology, and know-how to create a nuclear bomb in a matter of months if it wishes to. I came here to Tel Aviv University to talk to Professor Ephraim about this. He's the deputy director of the Institute for National Security Studies. Take a listen to what he had to say.
I think it's going to be more severe than any report before, and they are publishing 4 reports per year. But how much it's going to be severe, we have to wait and see.
I'm sure you've also read the leaked reports about the fact that there's new satellite pictures of perhaps a nuclear testing site, computerized models of warheads. You know, this obviously is a great concern.
Yes, and probably this report might refer, again, nobody knows exactly how, might refer to the military components of the Iranian nuclear program. And this is going to be quite damaging from the Iranian viewpoint.
Do you think it's going to mobilize the international community to take a tougher stand on Iran?
I am confident that the American administration and some European governments will try to use this report as a vehicle to increase the pressures on Iran and impose further sanctions on Iran. I have no doubt about it.
Russia and China have so far put the kibosh on any real sanctions, tougher sanctions from the United Nations Security Council. Do you think that this report will sway them at all?
Depends. Again, depends what is going to be written in this report. There is no doubt the Americans will impose pressures on both governments to cooperate. To what extent they will do it or not, we have to wait and see. Until now, in principle, they are willing to cooperate with the Americans. And the fact is that they voted 4 times in the Security Council of the UN for imposing sanctions on Iran. The point is how much and how heavy these sanctions are going to be. Will
this report, do you think, push Israel closer to the option of a military strike or move it away from that option?
I'm not sure it's going to move Israel away from the military operation. It's not really linked to each other. I'm sure that Israel will use this report, especially if it's going to be severe for Iran, in order to justify any moves, both diplomatic and economic sanctions, or even military operation. I think it could serve as a kind of basis for blaming Iran. To what extent, again, depends on the phrasing of this report.
Do you believe Israel is seriously considering a military strike on Iran?
I assume that yes. I think that for the last year, Israel mentioned a couple of times that all the options are open, and Israel has made several preparations along the years for such an operation. It doesn't say that a decision will be made. We have to wait and see, and I don't know whether the government decided or will decide on a military operation. But preparation from the military viewpoint, I have no doubt, they've been carried out.
Do you think it's worth the risks of a possible retaliation by Iran, whether that's rockets from Tehran or any of the proxy groups sending rockets over from the north or the south? Is a mission to try to take out their nuclear facilities worth that risk, do you think?
First of all, I'm confident that Iran will respond. Unlike the Iraqis 30 years ago and unlike the Syrians 4 years ago, which have not responded to the attack on their nuclear sites, I am confident Iran will respond. And Iran will do whatever it can do in order to cause damage to Israel, to the United States, depending who is going to carry out such an operation. And I think such a response will include, in the first place, the firing of a large number of ballistic missiles against Israeli and perhaps American targets in the Middle East, and using proxies, especially Hezbollah, against Israeli and perhaps even Jewish targets around the world. So they will respond. To what extent it's going to be severe, I'm less confident, because I would say firing of ballistic missiles, especially when Israel has at least partial countermeasures like the aero system, is not a dramatic strategic change in situation. And also are terror operations. They will use for sure terror operations, but to what extent are going to be really damaging? They'll cause casualties. How much depends on our countermeasures.
So you don't think it's going to really threaten to wipe out Israel?
Israel will be able to face such a threat.
Do you believe then that it's worth it to try to do a mission?
The answer is much more complicated. The answer, Iranian response is just one of the considerations we have to take into account. There are other considerations like what kind of intelligence we have about the Iranian nuclear sites, what our capabilities, operational capabilities to carry out such a very complicated and dangerous operation. Third, we spoke about the Iranian response. Fourth, the big question, how much time can we gain by carrying out such an operation? Will it be, say, 1 or 2 years, or will it be 7, 8, 9 years? I think the answer to this question is very crucial in these considerations. And there is another consideration, what the Americans are going to say about it. Will the Americans carry out such an operation by themselves? And will they give green light to Israel if they decide not to do it? And finally, we have to also to consider what is the alternative. If we decide not to carry out such an operation, can we live with nuclear Iran? This is a big, very big question. It's a matter of debate here in Israel also.
Do you think that Israel can live with a nuclear Iran? Some people say yes.
I would say my answer is a bit complicated. At the bottom line, I think that if Iran is going to play as a rational player, it will not use nuclear weapons against anybody, including against Israel. It will not. But for a variety of reasons, one of them is that they believe, like everybody believes, that Israel does have a large arsenal of nuclear weapons, and the outcome will be that Israel will respond in kind, and the outcome of such a response will be millions of Iranians killed, more than Israelis in any way. So they have very heavy and rational considerations not to attack Israel with nuclear weapons. Having said that, I have to make 1 or 2 reservations. One, what I'm suggesting is pure assessment. It is not based on facts, because we don't have any facts to support it. Because the Iranians don't give any indications how they're going to behave once they acquire the weapons. And secondly, there's a big question, what is the role of, I would say, fundamentalist, ideological, religious considerations and motivation in the Iranian decision-making? In other words, can we ignore the possibility that one morning the spiritual leader of Iran, Khamenei, will wake up and say, push the button because this is the order of Allah, no matter what the price is?
Right, we don't know how extreme their theocracy could lead them to, their theology.
Yes, because the regime of Iran is unique. I think this is the only one, perhaps one of the very few regimes which are led not by politicians, not by military men, not by ex-military men, but by religious people, and they might behave differently.
I want to thank you, Professor Ephraim Khan, the Deputy Director here of the Institute for National Security Studies, for joining us today on JN1.
Thank you too.